Hello, everyone, and welcome to Snap Take. This is Glazer of Snap Judgments, the official podcast of Marvel Snap Zone. And today we're going to go over the top 5 decks in Marvel Snap over 2 seasons. We're going to cover the top 5 decks, the top 5 players, and what they played on the Infinite Leaderboard during the month of November. And then we're going to look at my predictions for what the top 5 decks are going to be during December. The top 5 players and decks for, November are MSL Chamo at 9850. Coming up slightly ahead is YoungNewNew at 9591, Spida at 9600, Dopest Body at 9667, Sizer at 9928, and Walker ITA, aka Luke Skywalker, at 10,380. Now, there is much controversy with the Infinite Leaderboard over the past several seasons, honestly, going back almost half a year now. And as such, I released a video on all of that controversy, including the collusion on Walker ITA's part during this last season, the one that is under inspection today, that allowed him to become #1 on the Infinite Leaderboard. Unfortunately, there was a person's real name in one of the screenshots, and YouTube was able to privacy strike that down. That name will be blurred out, and the video will be re-uploaded by about tomorrow, around the time of this video's launching. I'm hoping for daily reset tomorrow. So if you're looking for that video, please remember to check back then, or you can just ring that notification bell, and you'll get notified as soon as it uploads. There is a secondary update on the Mafia statement that they've owned all the #1s that they made in that video. They stated that this group stated that they had every #1 for basically a year in Marvel Snap through their whatever means they've been using. There will be a later video update, or a part of a later video at the very least, where I update you all on that. But I'm trying to get all my ducks in a row. I like to wait for everyone to be able to have time to comment on things before I report them out. But I'm telling you, there is a fairly big update on the involvement of Mafia players in previous #1 seasons. Before we go further to the actual decks, let's ask you to hit that subscribe button, like, and comment as we try to hit 16,000 subs by the end of 2024. And we're aiming for a whopping 25,000 subs by the end of 2025. Your support to reach that would be absolutely invaluable if you're willing to. In return, we're going to give you at least 7 Marvel Snap videos a week, a video every single day. This week, we are giving you, I think, 10 videos, something along those lines. You will find no more and no more thorough Marvel Snap content anywhere on the internet. Please hit that sub button, liking and commenting. Also show that YouTube algorithm that it is worth supporting our content. We are also giving away a season pass. We're giving away this season pass. Sorry, this is the old slide for the season pass giveaway, but we are giving away a season pass of Galacta. If you would like Galacta, please make sure that you subscribe, like, and then follow each video. Every weekday video, I ask a question. You answer that question in the comments to the video. When you answer that question, what happens is you are now entered to win a season pass. I'm giving away 1 a week for the rest of the season, and then the last week of the season, we'll be giving away 5 Iron Patriot, and we are giving away 5 Galacta right now. This is last week's 5 Galacta winners. We have Star-Lord 3721, Derek Menser, 4 Dagger 44, Alex Pigeon, and Radiant Ivy. So the 5 of you, if you could reach out through the ways on the screen, I'd be happy to get you set up with your Galacta season passes. If you already have Galacta, I'll happily get you a gold pass. Cool. Sounds good. Please reach out. We again will be giving away 1 more Galacta this week, 1 more Galacta next week, and then the week after that, we are into Iron Patriot as the months just fly by. All right, so our #6 player is MSL Chamo. This is a Snap Judgments Alliance player. He's in our Snap Judgments Alliance Snap Legends team. He is twitter.com/CPNclada. He's on the American server. We play fairly regularly. And the main deck he played was a Wiccan Brew. This Wiccan list became the foundation for a lot of other decks throughout the course of the month. It was, at its time of release, fairly original, as like this semi-Surtur Wiccan build was not something seen. Chamo creates this list, and it becomes very popular. There are multiple versions of it. The most popular versions now, the version I believe he actually plays now, runs Fenris Wolf, but for the majority of last month, he was running this version. So like he added Gladiator and ran Fenris Wolf, and then basically said I can do the same exact thing in this deck, cut Mirage and Maria Hill. I can run the exact same thing in this deck and just have enough extra resources to be able to do whatever else I need to do. This deck gets out because of the Maria Hill along with Quicksilver. The Cape Bishop, the Cable and Mirage. This deck gets out Wiccan more consistently than fundamentally almost any other deck. The only thing you could really do to get out Wiccan even more consistently is add a copycat, because there's enough Wiccan mirrors that sometimes that just gives you a key piece. But yeah, this is absolutely a really, really powerful deck to this day. I know this is an older deck now, but that just means it's not using as many newer cards. You don't need Surtur. You don't need speed. You do need Kate, Wiccan, and Goliath. If you have those three cards, you should be able to build this deck. Very strong deck. Props to Chamo for a really great showing. Literally only a few points behind top five, which was taken by YoungNewNew, a player on the Asian server who is number in the top five every few seasons. I believe the last time they were in the top five was in the July season. I think this is a Chinese player. Someone can double check me if I'm wrong. It is difficult to find the decks that YoungNewNew has played, as their Twitter is not very active, and almost everyone I know on the Asian server has seemingly stopped playing Marvel Snap, which means that most of my sources into that server have now departed the game. Anti-Ronan is the deck I was able to find YoungNewNew playing. It was in a tournament, so I don't know if this was one of their ladder decks, but this is the best we've got for this. So we're just, full disclosure, going to use this YoungNewNew deck as our example. This is the Ronin Iron Man list that was everywhere for a little while as soon as Malekith came out. This deck works really, really well because Malekith hitting Master Mold or Maximus basically guarantees you a really powerful Ronin. Malekith hitting Grandmaster, and if you leave space for that, will end up hitting almost always Master Mold or Maximus unless you drew both of them. You don't really want to hit Cassandra Nova, but you're not actually upset at hitting Hydra Bob or Mystique. If you hit Hydra Bob, you just played a 4/11. If you hit Mystique, you just make sure the last card you play is an ongoing. Hitting Luke obviously makes your anti-venom plays better. Hitting Speed gives you a 4, usually like 14 or so, which is again just massive power. Cassandra Nova again being the really bad hit here. Cassandra Nova's value here is that arishem is a card, and I'm not sure if you're aware of that. And arishem is a popular card, particularly as I've been told on the Asian server, and thus having Cassandra Nova in the deck, even if it comes out at the end of the game, is a game-winning play. Anti-Venom Malekith are basically the key high series cards here. They are what allow you to sort of cheat, right? Um, Ronan having 5 power is important, but Ronan being 0 cost with 0 power is still quite powerful, especially for its cost. Iron Man or Mystique at 0 are incredible. Cassandra Nova at 0 against Arishem is incredible. You're perfectly fine at the end of the game to play a Maximus or Master Mold with your Ronin that are free, even if you don't get Luke Cage out to draw those extra cards and get that extra power. But if you can get particularly Maximus power with Luke Cage, a 0/6 that then gives your Ronin +4 is super strong. Stellar list. Really cool ideas here. Very cool combinations of stuff. Again, you do need Anti-Venom and Malekith. You do not need any of the other high series stuff if you want to give this one a spin. So next up we have Spida, and I don't know Spida. Spida is on the American server, although I swear I've never run into them, and they play exclusively Move. I was able to get this information from But apparently has played Spida a fair amount. Thank you, But. Spida, if you are watching this or do hear of this, please feel free to reach out, any corrections or comments. Apparently, the deck that they play is the Sizer Move, the Sizer main deck. That is right now number 2 on the Infinite leaderboard. Again, in Sizer's hands, this deck is absolutely great. Spida was able to come in number 4 with this. I believe Spida's version is the version that cuts Mobius and instead runs Doctor Strange. I didn't want to remake the whole deck for that, but that is a slightly cheaper version. Outside of that, you just need a bunch of very specific move cards and alive. You need Madam Web, you need Ghostbiter, you need Ananya, which are all powerful cards, but they're really powerful cards largely in move shells and that don't really see a ton of play elsewhere. So if you want move, unfortunately, move is an investment of resources into just move that in cards that don't go in a lot of other decks, unlike a card like Wiccan or a card like Malekith, which would be more which would offer more variety of decks, right? So if you want to invest in move, you're really investing in move. But this is a powerful deck that we're going to see again on this list momentarily. All right, we have Dopest Body, whose info I don't know, but Dopest Body is a member of the KM Best Yo Woody MJ group, plays on the American server, and the deck we have for Dopest Body is this Wiccan Wolf list. This is Dopest Body's best finish since we started doing this. And this is fairly similar to the when we talked about what Chamo was playing. This is reasonably similar to where Chamo ended up, where you're running cards like Negasonic, Shang-Chi, and Gladiator as a way to trigger your Fenris Wolf, which is obviously a very powerful way of going about doing things. Daredevil gives you extra information for that Negasonic, extra ways to know where you should play things like the Acid Arrow. Gladiator, it gives you an early Shang fairly often. So all of those things are very powerful. It can also tell you where to Goliath if you got Wiccan out, so on and so forth. Very cool and very powerful deck for Dopest Body. This is one of my favorite versions right now. I have this deck built in my game currently. It is not a cheap brew. Um, there you can go play the Chamo version if you don't have Fenris Wolf, but Fenris Wolf and Wiccan are absolutely required, as is Goliath. I guess this isn't that bad, and so is Kate Bishop. So if you buy the season pass, this isn't absolutely terrible. Gore is perfectly fine as Magneto still, and Red Guardian is a swing control card. Red Guardian became powerful in the meta because not only is discard powerful, move is powerful. There's a lot of powerful decks that Red Guardian absolutely hits extremely hard right now. And so Red Guardian is a premium piece of the puzzle for a lot of decks, but it is still a card that is just a tech card, and you can run a card like Rogue in its place without losing too much. Next up, we have Sizer. After all the collusion talk, Sizer was number 1 in October without collusion, is number 2 in November without collusion, is number 3 in, currently as of recording, number 2 in December without colluding. Part of that, however, and I'm just going to say this because this is 100% true, is that he plays massive play sessions. He played 13 hours yesterday. He seems to play about 8 to 9 hours a day. It is a full-time job how much time he puts into it. He's one of the best players in the world, have no doubt, but part of it is the sheer grindiness of it. The top of the Infinite Leaderboard is a combination of extreme skill at the game and extreme time in grinding and playing Marvel Snap. Sizer is right now the very best in the world at that. I will stand by that statement. Sizer plays on the European server. He played 4 decks: Scar, Malekith, Move, and Bounce Move. We'll go through them one at a time, as always. This is our first person, although we will have 2 from Luke Skywalker that played more than 1 deck. So we have the Sizer Tens test. This was the first Tens deck that he created at the beginning of the season. He basically hit Infinite with it and played for the first few days of his Infinite climb. It did do very well, but it wasn't really his style. The big innovation that Sizer had here was Sizer was the only person at the beginning. Eventually, everyone ended up doing this. That ran Juggernaut in the deck, which was a really cool little piece to the puzzle that allowed for that fundamentally allowed for ways to steal games at the end. Juggernaut being a cheap way to win a lane, and then using your giant bodies to steal another lane. Um, yeah, this list is perfectly fine. This is still a perfectly viable. If you're not seeing a lot of affliction, this version is better than the Luke Cage versions. If you are seeing a lot of affliction, then you need to run Luke Cage, probably over Juggernaut or one of your cheaper cards. Next up, we have the Sizer Malekith list. I still have this list in my game. I believe after a few days, either Silver Sable or Hydra Bob was replaced by Zabu. Um, so this ended up a Zabu and I want to say Domino list for the 1-drops. I personally think, and he played them both a reasonably equal amount, that the Silver Sable Hydra Bob version is better. I like having early plays. I think it has become underrated having things to do early in games of Marvel Snap, because if you're running Zabu and Psylocke, if you don't hit well with Psylocke, you miss and you don't hit Valentina, you're just basically passing like the first 3 turns, right? And that's, versus playing Sable, which is a 1/4, Hydra Bob, which is a 1/5, and then having the option to go into Valentina, it's a big change. This is a mid-range Ajax deck. This deck had to stop being played after a while because everyone on Earth put in Luke Cage. They particularly put in Luke Cage once Surtur was nerfed to 3/4, because Luke Cage became a necessity in the Tens deck, and once he became a necessity in the Tens deck, it was obvious that it became obvious thereafter that this deck, which could beat the Tens deck otherwise by just basically removing its power using cards like US Agent, using a well-timed earlier Hazmat, using Juggernaut, etc., was no longer the way to beat it. This deck had to move on from, but this is another deck that I still have in my game that I think is one of my favorites. Sizer's number 1 October deck is one he still played in December. The Mobius spot remains continually in flux. Mobius has been in and out. That spot has been taken up by Copycat, by Doctor Strange, by like a million other cards. So don't feel like you need Mobius there. I think that's going to be Penny Parker's spot in a couple days. Once Penny Parker comes out, I think Penny Parker is too good not to run in this deck. But yeah, that is my working assumption. I think this list is very strong and very fun and worth playing in the game of Marvel Snap. It is hard to play, but once you get the hang of it, it's probably the best deck in the game. The real trick of this deck, and I like saying this because people don't know it and it's not obvious, is to do everything turns 1 through 4, center and mid, and then you can spend turn 5 cloaking right, and that sets up a really, really tough spot for the opponent where your Heimdall or Goliath can win you the game, and you get to choose which based on what your opponent has been doing. And you don't have to move everything just because you played cloak, right? You can cloak and you can only move 1 or 2 cards, but those 1 or 2 cards you move are often so big that like the game feels won. Sometimes you know that when you do that they're going to shung, and that's why you have a Goliath or you have a Cosmo you can move or whatever else. Very, very cool. Um, this is again still I think the best deck in Marvel Snap. Although Sizer for most of the season used this move bounce list, Agent Venom eventually started as Frigga and eventually went back to being Frigga. So there have been multiple versions of this. Frigga was tested. I lost the name of the card. Magic was tested in the US Agent spot. US Agent is too good not to run. By the end of the month, US Agent was the absolute cube stealer, but Agent Venom or Frigga are perfectly fine for that particular spot. So is Falcon. Avazord, I know, runs Falcon in that spot to great success, so don't feel like you're boxed into any of those options. Um, Aranya, Ghost Spider, Human Torch, Iron Fist are just really strong. But Ghost Spider, Human Torch, and Iron Fist and Dagger being bounced, particularly with Beast, leaves you a completely unpredictable amount of power. This deck, if it sees its stuff, only loses to Cosmo and Goliath. Outside of that, it puts up more power than basically anything. It's an absolutely stellar list and one I cannot urge you enough to play. Um, I'm going to tell you my big problem with this list. I am the worst snapper on earth with this list. I always end up with a crazy high win rate and then like +7 cubes because this deck takes a massive amount of concentration to play. How Sizer plays this on stream, I do not know because as I'm trying to concentrate through the playing of this list, excuse me, I can't focus on snapping and proper snapping and retreating. I usually or almost always, like my win rate with this is huge. I almost always end up winning the game, but I end up with a far lower cube rate than I otherwise would because it's so hard to snap with. Hey, if you'd like to see all these decks in action and this morning's decks where we had this month's already #1 deck, please check out the stream team. Streaming right now as you are watching this, assuming you're watching this as it goes live, is the great Obihaved. Please go check him out on Twitch. All right, so Walker ITA, aka Luke Skywalker, finished #1. I don't know his socials, although we do talk on Discord sometimes. He's on the EU server. He played 2 decks, Scars 10 and Thanos Arishem. The Scars 10 deck is this one. He was often on this all season. He actually played this before Scar came out the season before, which is apparently how he ended up #1. He is an excellent player. I've seen him play enough at this point to know that him being #1, although it is impossible to know if it would have happened without collusion. He is still an absolute top-notch player, playing absolute top-notch decks at a very high level. So this is the Luke Skywalker #1 deck. It is very strong. You'll see the Luke Cage here, which ended up replacing one of the ones, which makes your Cull Obsidian less consistent, but it does keep all the powerful lines open. He played this list again. This is one of the stronger lists in Marvel Snap and one of the more straightforward ones. People have seemingly stopped playing it. They should not have. I'm not sure why they did, except that it's not new and shiny anymore, but this is quite strong. He also shoved that shell into Arishem and had great, great success. He switched between these 2 decks for the rest of the season. When he lost #1 to Sizer, he went to this and immediately reclaimed it. This is a very cool shell, and because you're Arishem, you're not as worried about just doing the Scar thing, so you don't have to worry about Luke Cage, which gives you space for extra things. The Loki is obviously very strong. You get the tech card of Shadow King in there, the cheap Mockingbird, Phastos for potential cheating, and then of course you always have a 10 in hand, so should you draw Surtur, it's at least a 3/7. Very cool deck. I like this is a great deck, but I think this one is genuinely a phenomenal idea that combines a lot of very, very powerful things. Blob in a deck that's running all the 10s makes nothing but sense. It was in the original Big Dumb Idiots deck from Gun ET. Stellar stuff. Props to Luke Skywalker, aka Walker ITA, for #1, and especially for this brew. I think that this is really, really cool. Although it's hard to find many decks more expensive than Thanos Arishem, right? Uh, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Series 5 cards, and Phastos, who's about to be, and Phastos, who's still technically Series 5, so 9, but will be Series 4 in a couple days. So this is not a cheap one, but it is a very fun and very powerful list. Hey, I don't always advertise this. I try and limit it to once every few weeks. But we have a Patreon. It's got a $2, $5, and $10 tier. There's a $50 tier, but like, unless you're like swimming in money, if you're rich and feel like giving me 50 a month, hey, have fun. But like, you don't feel required to. It lets you request a video if you want, but that's all it really does. All right, the $2 tier gives you access to all of our tournaments. I keep hearing people say, I want more tournaments, Marvel Snap, I want more cash tournaments. We're running 3 this month. So if you would check out the Patreon at the $2 tier, these are cash tournaments. 2 of them are $50 tournaments. I believe one is a $100 tournament. So this isn't huge money, but I'm funding them myself, so I'm doing my best. So that's the $2 tier. The $5 tier gets you early access to all videos and exclusive questions and access to me whenever you need it for certain things. Um, I also am happily coaching any $5 or $10 patrons to infinite if they have the free time and we can match up our schedules. So the $10 tier gets an exclusive video once a month, excuse me, once a week, where I talk about the top 10 decks from the previous week's videos because we cover, I don't know, 20, 25 decks a week. So we then do one video where I cover all those. And then we do a deep dive into Untapped and my own stats. That's the $10 tier. Obviously, that also includes previous tiers. So if you're interested in any of that stuff, please do check out patreon.com/snapjudgments. It would mean a lot to me. All right. So now we have our top 5 decks to watch in December. So the decks I think will be top 5 at the end of the month, and we've yet to do less than 4 out of 5 when we do this. Although I think this month might be it, and I will explain why once we're done talking about it. So Surfer, we're gonna look at Toxic Soul King and Tuccrr. Surfer, I think Surfer is going to end up at top deck for this month. I think Handbuff, the Ika Bink style of Handbuff is going to finally be a top deck. I think that this is legit. I think it puts up as much power as anything and is a very powerful deck worth playing. Uh, I would be surprised if Doom 2099 does not end up extremely strong. I think part of my reason for thinking that is obviously the power written on the card, and we will talk about Doom 2099 when we get there, because we're going to look at a deck for each of these. Um, I think part of the reason that Doom 99 is going to be so crazy strong is that it's obviously reads as strong, but the other reason that I'm really impressed by this card is they put absolute poo poo in the spotlight caches with it, and that usually indicates that they're selling it on the power of one card and they think that one card is incredible. I do think Scream is going to be great. I think Scream, because it can run both tech cards and clog and counter, and because we're getting a new amazing card for Scream decks coming soon, will be a great counter to the meta. And Scream decks have maintained a top win rate throughout, so I think Scream will be near the top. And lastly, I think Goon Knight, the KM best version of Goon Knight. There is a Ava version of Goon Knight, but I managed to not add it to the slideshow by accident. So the KM best version of Goon Knight in particular is going to be an absolute menace. I think that one of the best ways to deal with all the Doom stuff that's going to be everywhere and all the move stuff that's going to be everywhere are cards like Gambit and Moon Knight. And Goon Knight runs both of those, and that should give them enough counterplay to really be able to compete. Last month we hit on 4.5 out of 5 of our lists. You can go check that video if you're curious. It depends how you feel about negative, whether you think I had 5 out of 5 or 4 out of 5. I did have a Gore Mr. Negative list in the top 5. I'm unsure whether that counts as one of the top decks of the last season or not. I think for most players it does. So that's where we are. All right, Toxic Soul King's Turfer. We covered this earlier this week. Feel free to check out the video on December 5th if you're interested. This is a Luna Snow Sarah Surfer list. Basically, what you want to do in Luna Sarah list, I don't think Luna is required, by the way. These are sample lists. They're not like, oh my god, these are the lists, right? But what you want to do here is you want to go Luna into Sarah into Galactic and Gwenpool, which is just stupid power, and then whatever you play, you win. That doesn't always happen. When it does happen, you've won the game Marvel Snap. But you have counterplay from Rogue, which I think is my single favorite thing, because Iron Man is one of the few ways opponents can really compete with you. Madam Web is one of the few ways opponents can compete with you. Having both Rogue and Red Guardian to answer that type of card is important. Brood and Shaw are huge. Copycat has a million good hits. Sometimes this list hits a Wiccan on curve and you just feel broken powerful. Zabu gives you extra ways to do Galactic Gwenpool nonsense. Super cool list, incredibly strong. Props to Toxic Soul King for it. And then we have Tuccrr's Galactic Surfing. This is my favorite version of the list, although I would change Mobius for, you guessed it, Rogue. Right now, I think that basically this is doing enough similar things. I like Hope better than Sarah as a general rule. I don't like Luna Snow as a card. Sorry to Luna Snow stands. You can check my review of that in this morning's video. But basically, what this wants to do is it wants to it's got the Galacta plan, right? But you can drop Galacta into Brood absorbing man nonsense, right? Which is just stupid power. Galacta's +3, right? So that turns your brood into an old Surfer brood of 15 power, and then you can add another 6 to that for 21 with Surfer, which is crazy. You can also go Galacta into Forge and Galacta's Lane brood, and then you've got the 21 that you can then make 27 with a Surfer, or God forbid, just the Nova shenanigans. You just get stupid power with this list. Obviously, Shaw, through many of the same means, gets utterly, utterly humongous. This list puts out massive power and is incredibly good into the meta right now. Ika's Handbuff. I just keep winning with this list. I don't know what to say. We're gonna have this as the main deck for tomorrow's video because I hit infinite with it with an 80% win rate. So we're gonna talk a lot about this. So I'm not gonna go into any great detail, but I've had massive success with this list. I'm in love with it. I've changed 0 cards. It's got so many play lines. I think I might make Nakia Fastos. Um, I might. I haven't decided yet. But outside of that, this list is absolutely stellar. It's got amazing stats for me in both top 200 Infinite. I'm like rank 150 right now because I had a bad session last night. And in the lead up to Infinite, I think that this is going to be a list that's here to stay. They gave us hand buff. Sorry, buff cards until they finally released Galacta, and buff broke. Binks has a similarly powerful list. I do not like Mysterio in this. I have personally replaced Mysterio with Grandmaster in my list because Grandmastering Zabu or Grandmastering Gwenpool are so good. But you're also fine just Grandmastering something like a buffed Brood without really worrying about it, right? There's a lot of ways to put a ton of power on the board with this. This one does run Fastos. This is the best Scarlet Spider has ever been. I'm just in love with this as an archetype, and I think I'm gonna like harass some top players to really get on it and see if we can get a perfected version. But I think this is my big swing of the month. But I do think this is going to be a top deck. Also, this is the archetype I suggest if you're struggling to hit infinite right now. Next up, we have Doom 2099 is broken. This is my version of the list. It runs all the cards that I really just want to shove in a Doom 2099 list, except for Cosmo. I would like to fit Cosmo, so I might have to remove Mobius for Cosmo or Penny for Cosmo. We'll see once the card actually comes out. Um, Basically, I want to get Doom 2099 out and win games from that. I also have the opportunity to win games with Sandman. I might want something like Eliath here as an extra way to like shut things down that are trying to counter me at the end of the game. But outside of that, this list should be massively powerful. We do know that Doom 2099 works with the original Doctor Doom. So I've got Jubilee and Iron Lad as extra ways to see the damn card early, whether it be through Psylocke, Zabu, or just playing them on 4. Spectrum should boost all the Doombots that all have ongoing effects. Mobius is an ongoing effect, and so is Blue Marvel. So I've got that going for me as just a ton of ways to put a massive amount of power. I do think Sandman is going to end up being a key player in these decks. A lot of people don't care about Sandman, but when you do care about Sandman, he auto wins you games of Snap. Zombies Go Nom Nom has another version of this. This is not the same list, but it's similar enough. He's going with Galacta, partially because um, you can always Galacta into 2099, right? But if you get that early ramp of Zabu and Psylocke, my favorite idea here, if you get that early ramp of Zabu or Psylocke and you don't see 2099, but you do see Malekith on 3, that gives you an extra turn to get that Doom 2099 out. Remember, after Doom 2099, you only want to play 1 card. So if you go Galacta into Doom 2099, you now have a 5 starting power that's going to get further buffed of that card. And then you can immediately start making Doombots. You can play a claw that ends up a 7 power claw, a doom that starts with 8 power and gets bigger. This should be insanely strong. I'm very, very excited for this list. Luke Cage is a really smart addition here as well. I'm not sure how much I like cards like Shadow King that need to be played later because later in the game I really, really, really only want to be playing 1 card, but I do understand it. I think this list is going to be awesome. And again, the Malekith edition is just absolutely brilliant. All right, we're on to the portion of the deck that is Scream decks. So this is Stinky Trees and Raccoons. This used to be a Stinky Smooth list, which was created by Yo Woody MJ and piloted to a top 5 finish by Big Baby a few seasons ago. I updated it to add Scream, and I hit Infinite with it last season. And then I think Rocket and Groot absolutely go great here as just like a way to get a cheap Spider-Man, but also a way to help lower opponent's power. Rock and Recruit. Oh, I didn't actually explain what Doom 2099 did. I'm so sorry. Doom 2099 is a 2/2. If you play exactly 1 card that turn, it's going to create a Doombot that is also a 4/2, but has the ongoing +1 power to all um, to all Doombots and Doom, which means both Doctor Dooms and both sets of Doombots, and that ongoing ability is going to stack. So it's not going to buff itself, right? But it's going to buff this Doom, and then the next one will buff the first Doombot and the Doom further. So you're going to get three. If you can play Doom 2099 on 4, you're going to get three of those because you get one on turn 4, one on turn 5, one on turn 6, which is going to be plus 3 power to everything but that original Doombot and plus 2 power to those original Doombots, which is a lot of power, especially when you combine with Doctor Doom, who are then going to all get plus 3 power. So Doom becomes a 24 power play at the end of the game. That's Doom 29. Sorry. Rocket and Groot is a 3/3. When an opponent plays a card in its location, it loses a power, and Rocket and Groot gains a power. Cool. So with one card played on it, it becomes a 3/3. But that's not all. It also has the ability it can move once per game. The Nightcrawler or Jeff ability is the ability on Rocket as far as moving it. So if your opponent is avoiding a lane because Rocket and Groot are there, excuse me, because Rocket and Groot are there, you can then move that Rocket and Groot to where they are competing. Cards like Hope Summers or Angela really, really suffer from this. Any locations that opponents don't want to play in make this really, really difficult to play around. If they're not running Luke, you just freaking roll them with this. And you have Scream here because Scream with one move is a 2/7. And if you can get both Polaris and Spider-Man going, you just played a 2/11. 2/11 is absolute world-beating stats. You have two potential 2/11s in both Scream and US Agent in the list, which gives you all sorts of power. You have a 1/6 in Spider-Man, right? You have Man Thing to remove a bunch of power from their things, which plays as like a 4/11 or 4/13. And then Ajax, which is often like a 5/15, 5/20. You just put out tons of power here. This list looks like it's doing a bunch of control stuff, but what it's really doing is saying I put out a lot of cheap scaling power. I have a 1/5, a 1/6, a 2/11, a 2/11, another 2/5, which is like my bad stats. Uh, Rocket should be playing for at least a 3/7 if you get it out at a reasonable time. This is just awesome, awesome stats in this list, and I think this is going to be a meta list. If this cannot compete with Doom 2099, which is possible, US Agent should absolutely wreck that deck until it starts running Luke. We have a Clog version, and Clog should be very good against 2099 stuff, and is already very good into the meta right now. Scream gets along well with Clog because Scream gets big enough to win a Clog lane fairly often. And once a lane is clogged, Cannonball wins you the game, right? So being able to move opponents' cards helps clog them, and then obviously just having this powerful 2/11 helps you win those games, along with Cannonball, Shang-Chi, which are fundamentally infinite freaking power, right? So that's what this list will do. I think Ika Scream, which everyone has stopped playing right now, is going to be the way to go about doing that. I'm excited for this list. I'm not excited for Clog to be back. I'm not going to lie about that. But I do think that this list is going to be really good into the meta that is coming. Finally, we have the Goon Knight. This is a Dark Fenris. Interesting. This is a whatchamacallit, a KM Best list that has been all over the meta. It's still got a super high win rate despite being all over the meta with players of all different skill levels. So, unfortunately, you do need Fenris Wolf for this. You also probably need Darkhawk. Outside of that, you don't really need anything though. Proxima is very good, but I maintain that Swarm is a perfectly fine replacement for most people for this list. And Hydra Bob is just like probably the Series 5 card you most want to get right now, at least after this coming week's OTA. And if they don't change Hydra Bob, he's just so far and away the best generic one. Um, this deck should do an absolutely stellar job at competing with Doomless. It already does a stellar job at competing with everything else. Basically, Moon Knight gives you a chance to chuck Doom before Doom 2099 or other key cards before they can play it. Gambit gives you a chance to take it out when it's on the board, and then Black Widow says if you play that Widow's Kiss, you don't get an extra Doombot, and you better have enough cards in your hand to win the game at that point. So all those things, when combined, just seem like enough power to really, really be competitive into that matchup. A card like Juggernaut or Black Widow could become a Red Guardian if you want one more answer for that matchup. But yeah, I think this is going to be quite strong into the meta, and I'm very excited to see how it ends up playing out in the long run. I do think that this is one of the places we really want to be. Um, yeah, this is one of the places we really want to be in countering Doom decks. And honestly, a lot of decks right now play like a card on turn one, a card on turn two, a card on turn three. And if they miss any of those, Gambit gives you such amazing power. Gambit's just one of the best cards in the game right now. Maybe he always was and we just didn't notice, but Gambit is absolutely incredible. So Goon Knight is my final. I know I wrote Good Night there. a Mr. Typo today. Apparently just is going to be very good. So that's my pick for what's going to be top of the December meta. And now we're on to our questions of the day. So Leviathan Smiles asked my predictions for the next patch. I have three, I think. Prediction number one is going to be that they're going to do something to arishem. I think that them asking the question on the Discord server and all the ruckus that caused is going to lead them to do something. I don't know if they're going to add more cards. I don't know if they're going to redesign, but I do believe there will be some change. I believe they're going to extend Splitsmas. I think canceling Splitsmas right before actual Christmas, as they're going away for a month and not updating anything, would be a very bad look. So I expect them to extend Splitsmas. And then the final thing is not patch technically, but OTA related. I fully expect them to change the living crap out of a million cards because they want to create a fresh meta, or as fresh meta a meta as fresh a meta as possible for since there's not going to be any more OTAs for the rest of December. So I assume that it's going to be seismic when they do change cards. Um, Oh God, I didn't write down who asked this question. I'm sorry. My favorite MCU movie for 2025 is going to be Fantastic Four. It's one of my favorite Marvel properties. I love Doctor Doom. I love Reed Richards. I love Ben Grimm. Actually, I love the whole Fantastic Four except really the Human Torch, which is ironic because it's my favorite snap card. But I love the kids, the side cast. It's just brilliant. It's when written well, always my favorite comic. So, well, that and like really great X-Men are at a war for my absolute favorite superhero comic. So yeah, I am so hyped for Fantastic Four, which apparently comes out July 25th, 25, which is pretty cool. Certain tiers of support on our Patreon come with honor. Thanks. This is part of the $10 tier. Thank you to I've got this. Oh, good. I have the new one. Thank you to Abigail Geeson, Mandatory Burnout, Irregardless, David G. Wingfield, Dirty Casual, Danton, LAB, FaThorNewman, Good Dog Gamer, Inc., I Am Frostman, J. Navarit, Thinking Poker, Primed Ryan, Ryan Burke, Ryan Wood, Ryans, Caretix League, Corey Ray, Archangel 3K, K-Town, Black Dahlia, Perforce the Goat Seeker, Hollowed, Quid Pro Joe, Snap Decisions Joe, check out Snap Decisions, Fat Nick, Mr. Kerfuffle, thanks for hanging out in chat yesterday, Kerfuffle, Cables, hey Cables, Ginger Prime, hi Ginge, Philip Ratkovich, Haplo, Candy Loggins of the Danger Zone, Rob Silverman, The Bizza, Black Jeebus 23, Express V, and Skippy G, our rhyming friends, Jessica Gamble, hey Jess, Tommy Nyquist, who won Snapchat League Season 1, the King of Rose, Bruh, the Great Kazoo, Kevs Yehuda, and Lunarquist, two of my favorite folks around, Corwin, John Q, Jimmy McQ, Q-Town, we got K-Town and Q-Town, Clam, Colonel Forbin, Yistout, 8th, Sage, Mod Supreme Models, Norman Osborne, Green Goblin, Unibot, Flan 56, Steven, Brian Kaufman, Tristan H. Martin, and Jason B. Real names ahoy. J.D. McDaldino, welcome back, my friend. The Fuzzy Dunlop, Spectrumix, Hoot, Matt H., DJ Mikey Hijinks, No Frickin' Flex, Ocularis, Mr. Craig Sterry, BG, Zodrex, the King of Canada, 10 Man Falcon, Jonesy, Two Ties, the Great Lauren Whatevs, the Pirate King Tuccrr, and of course, Gunny T, where the T stands for. Don't forget, if you missed the drama video and want it back, it'll be there tomorrow. I also have How I Hit Infinite tomorrow morning and the current number one deck in Marvel Snap from this morning. Check it all out. Much love and respect to everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your Sunday, later in the week if that's when you're seeing this. And I'll see you tomorrow. You guessed it, for another Snap Take. Peace.